From the very beginning, colonialism in America meant competition. European countries were eager to gobble up as much land as possible in the New World. Sometimes this competition turned into open warfare, and the French and Indian War is a perfect example of this.
Welcome to the H.O.P.E, helping our people elevate. Whether you're a returning viewer or a first-time guest, I'm glad that you're here. My channel is dedicated to exploring the stories, history, and cultural connections that shape the world that we live in today. From uncovering first encounters between Africans, Native Americans, and Europeans, to examining key historical events like the abolitionist movement and the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade. My mission is to inspire understanding, awareness, and empowerment through knowledge. So if you're passionate about learning, reflecting, and elevating the conversation, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, hit that subscribe button, turn the notification bell on so you never miss an opportunity to grow with us. Together, we'll connect the dots of history and build a better future. Let's get started. Peace and love, family.
On behalf of Colonial, call for Bay, you know what I'm saying? Jay, where you at? We're trying to help our people elevate. Hope, H.O.P.E. We're giving them hope. We doing what we gotta do, you know. Every day, one step at a time, man. We gonna make it happen. Helping our people elevate. Yeah. Sometimes I practice, focus, thought, and meditate. I'm trying to come with other ways to help our people elevate and seeking knowledge, make me levitate. The lifted mental state is what results from how we orchestrate. This for the family's sake. Let's self-reflect and self-evaluate. And every day, make sure the steps you take, you calculate. Receive a master's fate. I know I can't exist without the hate, but that's okay. I balance that with higher self today. Success is on this way, and after that, my flesh can pass away.
A great many years ago, when men with a white skin had never yet been seen in this land, some Indians who were out fishing at a place where the sea widens spied at a great distance something remarkably large floating on the water, and such as they had never seen before. These Indians immediately returned to the shore, apprised their countrymen of what they had observed, and pressed them to go out and discover what it might be. They hurried out together.
Native Americans in colonial America. Native Americans resisted the effort of the Europeans to gain more land and control during the colonial period, but they struggled to do so against a sea of problems, including new diseases, the slave trade, and an ever-growing European population. They resisted the efforts of the Europeans to gain more of their land and control through both warfare and diplomacy. But problems arose for the Native Americans, which held them back from their goal, including new diseases, the slave trade, and an ever-growing European population in North America. In the 17th century, as European nations scrambled to claim already occupied land in the New World, some leaders formed alliances with Native American nations to fight foreign powers. Some famous alliances were formed during the French and Indian Wars of 1754 to 1763. The English allied with the Iroquois Confederacy, while the Algonquin-speaking tribes joined forces with the French and the Spanish. The English won the war and claimed all of the land east of the Mississippi River. The English allied Native Americans were given part of the land, which they hoped would end European expansion, but unfortunately only delayed it. The Europeans continued to enter the country following the French and Indian War, and they continued their aggression against Native Americans. Another consequence of allying with Europeans was that the Native Americans were often fighting neighboring tribes. This caused rifts that kept some Native American tribes from working together to stop European takeovers. Native Americans were also vulnerable during the colonial era because they had never been exposed to European diseases, like smallpox, so they didn't have any immunity to the disease, and some Europeans did. European settlers brought these new diseases with them when they settled, and the illnesses decimated the Native Americans, by some estimated killing as much as 90% of their population. Though many epidemics happened prior to the colonial era in the 1500s, several large epidemics occurred in the 17th and 18th centuries among various Native American populations. With the population sick and decreasing, it became more and more difficult to mount an opposition to European expansion. Another aspect of the colonial era that made the Native Americans vulnerable was the slave trade. As a result of the wars between European nations, Native American allied with losing sides were often indentured or enslaved. They don't teach us about the Native Americans being enslaved in schools. So who are these people that were enslaved that they talk about? So-called black people, right? So whose land is this really? Who are the real Native Americans? As we've gone over the definition of American, but that's a whole other subject, so I'm gonna just keep reading. But we know who this is about. This is about our people. There were even Native Americans shipped out of the colonies like South Carolina into slavery and other places like Canada. These problems that arose from Native Americans would only get worse in the 19th century, leading to a greater confinement and the extermination of Native people. Unfortunately, the colonial era was neither the start nor the end of the long, dark history of treatment of Native Americans in the United States.
Portugal, under the leadership of Prince Henry the Navigator, emerged as a pioneering force in maritime exploration. Prince Henry's passion for discovery and his desire to expand Christian influence drove the Portuguese to explore the uncharted coasts of Africa. Prince Henry established a navigation school at Sagres, where he brought together the best navigators, cartographers, and shipbuilders.
The Portuguese in Africa from 1415 to the 1600s. Access to commodities such as fabric, spices, and gold motivated a European quest for a faster means to reach South Asia. It was this search that led the Portuguese down the coast of West Africa to Sierra Leone in 1460. Due to several technological and cultural advantages, Portugal dominated world trade for nearly 200 years, from the 15th to the 16th century. While in the 15th century, the rest of Europe was decimated by the Black Plague, Portugal was protected by its physical isolation. But additionally, Portugal had an unusual strong national identity due to its natural geographical borders, allowing a pooling of considerable economic resources necessary to fund the ambitious explorations. Additionally, Portugal's extended contract with Islam, and therefore with its superior mathematical knowledge and sailing technologies, including sail shapes, hull designs, and maritime weaponry, resulted in a Portuguese fleet capable of negotiating the high Atlantic seas. As a consequence, most of the West African coast was explored in the period of 1415 into the 1600s. Preserved maps from this period show a remarkable accurate understanding of the complicated coastline. African exports consisted primarily of gold, ivory, and pepper. However, more than 175,000 slaves were also taken to Europe and the Americas during this period. In 1600, with the involvement of the Dutch and English, the magnitude of the slave trade grew exponentially. Another thing they don't teach us in the schools is about the slave trade that took place across the rest of the world. But watch the abolitionist video that I just recently dropped, and you'll see where it talks about the abolitionist movements that took place across the world to end slavery.
The coastal region was first visited by Portuguese explorers in the 15th century. Over time, the land became a hub for the transatlantic slave trade, with European powers vying for control. In 1787, the British established Freetown, a settlement for freed African-American slaves. This marked the birth of modern Sierra Leone, with its capital taking its name from the colony's mission to provide sanctuary for liberated Africans.
From the time of their arrival on the shores of Sierra Leone in 1460, and until their gradual decline as leaders in world exploration in the 16th century, the Portuguese had an ambiguous relationship with their African trading partners. Disembarking at cities that were as large, complex, and technologically advanced as Lisbon at the time, the Portuguese actually experienced far less cultural shock than we might expect. In fact, they encountered urban centers in West Africa comparable to those back in Europe, governed by elaborate dynasties, organized around apprenticeship-based artistic guilds, and with agricultural systems capable of feeding their large populaces. Many African cities were even deemed to be larger, more hygienic, and better organized than those of Europe. Additionally, the Portuguese shaped many beliefs about magic, the supernatural, and the treatment of illness with African societies they encountered. Protective amulets in both cultures were considered medically valuable, and sickness in general was attributed to witchcraft. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery and empowerment. If today's content inspired you or taught you something new, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Subscribe to The Hope, helping our people elevate, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode that helps connect the dots of history and culture. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. Remember, your voice matters, and together we can elevate and empower our communities through knowledge. Until next time, keep seeking the truth, celebrating the past, and building a brighter future. Stay hopeful, stay elevated, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace and love.